hair in the paint. The iconic store Macy's has posted slowing online sales growth that is raising questions about prospects for the upcoming holiday season. Like-for-like sales fell more than 20% through October, better than forecasts, while digital demand slowed from the June quarter's 53% jump. Macy's has uprated its curbside pickup service as consumers increasingly stay away from traditional shopping. Microsoft is pledging to challenge all government requests to access user information. The move is to address European Union scrutiny of data that's sent to the US. Microsoft also says it will compensate users whose information is disclosed to government agencies. It follows a ruling by an EU court in July to protect information from American intelligence agencies.
Billionaire philanthropist and famously, of course, the co-founder of Microsoft, Bill Gates, says it's mind-blowing how badly the US has handled the virus pandemic. Speaking of the New Economy Forum, he told Bloomberg editor-in-chief John Micklethwaite that the United States is behind in many ways, although it's done well, at least in one key area.
In the case of the US, the only thing they've done well is they funded more R&D, not just for US-based companies, but for companies around the world, including a lot of these European constructs. And, you know, that was a good thing. That was a favor to the world. The rest of it, the US is sort of at the back of the pack. The diagnostic work we did, the messaging, you know, even today the messaging is reaching a new level of incoherence.
Just on that, I mean, very quickly, I'm going to come back to vaccines, but you look at the numbers. I just looked again on the Bloomberg virus tracker. You look at the deaths for every million people. America's now close to 750 deaths. China, the other great participant in this conference, is around 3 deaths for every million people. Obviously, you know, one number may be a bit overcounted, the other bit undercounted, but by any measure, one country has done enormously better than the other. Why has the US been so bad compared with other people?
I don't think comparing China and the US is that helpful, because China has a more authoritarian control over behavior than the US does. But if you compare the US to South Korea, Australia, the contrast is every bit as dramatic as it is with China. And so we didn't catch the epidemic at that early stage where the numbers are small before they get exponentially big. And we are facing, which the IHME model predicted, that the fall will be very tough. Some people didn't think the fall would be tough, but as they had looked at the numbers and saw in places like Brazil how the austral winter affected infection rates, they saw that. And so the bad news is the next 6 months in the Northern Hemisphere will be very tough. The good news is that both the vaccines and the therapeutics, in particular the antibodies, are coming along and will start to bring that number way down.
But up to that point, presumably we must rely on masks and all these things that America has not been, and testing especially.
That's right. The behavior, the using the test for people, and then if they test positive, you contact trace, and those people make sure they're not infecting other people. The U.S. still has a long ways to go on that. Although the numbers are so extreme, you do have finally more agreement that restaurants, bars, a number of things will have to forgo during this next 5-month period.
Were you surprised by how badly America has done on that? Very quickly.
Oh, it's mind-blowing. We have so many more PCR machines than per capita than any other country. We have the CDC that has the deep expertise and it practiced how to communicate appropriately to the public. They made some mistakes early on, then they were completely muzzled. Nobody even knows the name of the people underneath Redfield who would have been the key communicators. And we had this so-called task force. So it is disappointing. We don't get to go back and change that. But we still have a chance to wear masks. In fact, that at healthdata.org, that's the IHME forecast, they show a line that if you have good mask wearing, that you save now over 100,000 deaths in the U.S. over the next 6 months.
Bill Gates speaking with Bloomberg editor-in-chief John Micklethwaite at the New Economy Forum. Well, the WHO says Gilead's remdesivir should not be used to treat COVID-19 patients. This less than a month after US regulators granted the drug speedy approval. Let's get more from Rachel Chang, who leads our Asian consumer and healthcare team. Rachel, give us the details. What does this mean for remdesivir? I'm guessing a huge blow to Gilead.
I mean, it's definitely a blow to the legitimacy of this drug and to global acceptance of this drug. I don't know if people remember, but months ago at the start of the pandemic, this drug was really seen as something that could turn everything around, and so that's a big fall from grace for the drug. Well, Gilead obviously is questioning the results of the WHO's trial. It's saying that its own trials show that the drug is effective. It hasn't been given access to the WHO's trial, and the FDA seems to be pretty confident that doctors should continue prescribing this drug in the U.S. We're seeing other countries that have approved remdesivir, like Japan, say that they'll continue to use it as well. So there may not be any short-term changes with the WHO's decision, but it's definitely a blow to the legitimacy of the drug.
So, Rachel, no short-term changes. What about long-term ones, quickly?
So in the long term, I think, what we're going to see is that situations move so fast this year that we have drugs and vaccines coming into play in a really short time frame. In the last pandemic, which was SARS in 2003, lots of patients were given drugs that caused long-term problems. They had health problems for 10 years later. At the time, we thought those drugs were working well, and what is seen afterwards is that they were not at all, and patients were left with some side effects. So this is definitely something that could occur in this pandemic as well.
All right, Rachel Chang, thanks so much for joining us there with all the latest on that development. Let's check in on markets here. It is the final trading day of the week, and it has been a good one for Asian stocks. We're on track for a weekly gain of around 1.5%. We hit those records earlier in the week, but it has been a couple of sessions of consolidation as we see a little bit of weakness coming through in some of the key markets, like the Nikkei retreating from those 1991 highs amid concerns about this resurgence of virus cases in Tokyo. The NZX 50 coming off records as well. Pretty good day, though, in Hong Kong, and we're seeing some momentum in the PSCI in the Philippines. We had that surprise interest rate cut coming through. The Singapore market rising ahead of this expected, well, probably not ahead of this, but there is the Hong Kong travel bubble starting on Sunday, Rish.
Yep, absolutely, and you've got a special interest in that, flying to Hong Kong from Singapore. We're going to have a look at that with Yukor Yusuf from Ender Analytics. How does it move the aviation dial? How does it affect Cathay and Singapore Airlines? And also we'll be having a look at the market action and how you navigate these choppy waters. Hang Seng up 1/3%. A lot more coming up in the next hour of Bloomberg Markets.
almost 11 a.m. here in Singapore and in Hong Kong. Welcome to Bloomberg Markets Asia. I'm Juliet Sali.
I'm Rashad Salamat. This is a look at our top stories. Tensions rising in Washington with the Treasury asking the Fed for its money back. Stephen Mnuchin wanting unused billions to be pumped into the slowing economy.
The PBOC set to diverge from other central banks and press ahead with tapering its stimulus programs. Policymakers left the loan prime rate unchanged.
And Asia's first travel bubble launching this weekend as aviation struggles with the virus fallout. Bloomberg is on one of the first flights between Singapore and Hong Kong.
Yes, I believe that falls to me, Rish. Let's have a quick check of the markets. We are seeing US futures falling as we talk about this spat between Treasury Secretary Mnuchin and the Fed over the emergency stimulus program. That is weighing through into a little bit of negativity coming through for Asian equity markets as well. The MSCI Asia Pacific Index there is flat. Yesterday we retreated from those records, but it had been on that extraordinary win of 13 sessions of gains, and we are on track for a weekly gain of around 1.5%. We're talking about the travel bubble between Singapore and Hong Kong. The Straits Times Index is one of the outperformers in the region today. And you are seeing dollar strength against the yen. We're seeing weakness coming through in both the Japanese yen and the Aussie in terms of G10 declines today, Rish.
All right, let's just quickly look at the Bangkok Open, have a look at what's going on with the Stock Exchange of Thailand. The benchmark there opening just flat currently. We've got essentially a bar which has been doing very well. It's been at